Please be seated. I hereby open this ceremony, convened by the Academic Board of Wageningen University, in which Sophia Janine Benjamins is offered the opportunity of defending a thesis with propositions entitled Parent, Child and Professional on the Same Page, Implementation and Evaluation of a Client-Accessible Health Record in Dutch Centres for Youth and Family. The defence will take place before an examining committee appointed by the Academic Board as a prerequisite for conferring the degree of Doctor. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you all to this graduation. My name is Simon Bush. I'm Professor of Environmental Policy at Wageningen University and representing the Rector Magnificus and Academic Board here today. I'd like to open the defence by calling on the first examiner, Dr. Wesselink. Dr. Wesselink is Associate Professor of Education and Learning Sciences here at Wageningen University. Dr. Wesselink, the floor is now yours.
Thank you. Respected candidates, first of all, I would like to congratulate you with this major achievement. I really enjoyed reading your thesis. I do have an educational and learning sciences background, and I'm not involved in the healthcare sector as such, but you write in such a way that I could understand everything, and I really enjoyed it. I was fully engaged in the topic, also because you involve different stakeholder groups in your studies, and even you involve the clients or the patients or the persons, which I always very much appreciate to involve the end user. My compliments for that. And as a mother of two, I also can see the need and the added value of all the activities you describe in your thesis. While reading your thesis, I was happily surprised to encounter multiple concepts which are quite common in my daily research practice, but of course applied in your research context. Nevertheless, I do want to discuss some of these concepts and theories with you. First of all, I would like to start with the concept of teams. As a collaboration or team expert of Wageningen University, I tend to know quite a lot about learning and working in teams. Based on the descriptions in your thesis, you give me the impression you see these interdisciplinary collaborators or professionals as a team. Based on a review study I did, there is an overview of all elements influencing teams and team learning. The aspects you mentioned, for example, are task and goal interdependence. These are my concepts. You use some kind of different wording, but I do recognize them. But first of all, my question, to what extent do you think these professionals consider themselves as a team?
Highly esteemed opponent, thank you for your kind words. And I'm happy to hear that you read my thesis with enthusiasm. And I think it depends on who you ask in these teams, whether they do consider themselves as a team or not. And to a certain extent they do, and sometimes they don't. Because there are 3 organizations involved, so it's an inter-organizational team. And for instance, when you ask someone to which team do you belong, someone will tell you, I am from the CEG, and someone will tell you, I am from Jeugdgezondheidszorg. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you even have to explain to them, but Jeugdgezondheidszorg, that is CEG. So it differs between persons and between teams, I think.
Yeah, and to what extent do they see themselves as a team of care providers around clients or persons?
That's also different, and I think the message that the managers are conveying to them is you are one team, and you have to take care for the children in your in the municipality where you work together, which means that you make a plan together and you use information of each other when you are working with families. And I think it's different how, within teams, it's different how people do that.
Due to the leadership, because that was my next question. Leadership, we know, is really determining how teams function or do not function. Mm-hmm. And you already, at least you, that's how I understand it, talk about this leadership. How does this leadership influence their team working or their collaboration? hinder or help? That can be both. Huh?
Yes. I think it helps that there is a clear vision on. We have 3 organizations, as I said, in the CEG. And it helps to have a common vision on are we a team or not, when all 3 organizations give the same message about that. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But that helps, that you hear the same from your leaders.
Yeah. So the leaders should also collaborate in that sense.
Absolutely, yes.
Be aligned at least. Okay, thanks. My next topic is what I call co-creation, and it's also coming back in your thesis. And I would like to ask you to ask one of your paronyms to read Proposition 5.
Dear paronym, could you please read Proposition 5 for us?
Okay. Essential ingredients of a co-creative process are patience, perseverance, and pizza nights.
Yes, I was triggered by the pizza nights, you can imagine. But based on my own experience, I know that you have to know each other a bit before you can really start working as a team and to really understand what the other is meaning and to really co-create something. So my question is, to what extent do these professionals have these pizza nights to realize or to improve the co-creation and also to prove the concept you used as the interdisciplinary collaboration coefficient, something like that? Because that was not improved at all because of the system, the EPRU system. And that was a little bit disappointing, but maybe there are other reasons why it did not grow or did not improve during time.
Yes, and I think, as I explained in my chapter about interprofessional collaboration, COVID has been interfering with our building of teams. So during the period of my study, there have not been any pizza nights because we were dealing with COVID, and the pizza nights actually come from what we did with parents and adolescents, where we have been building the client portal together. And at a certain point, we started just seeing each other and then discussing how we should build the client portal. And I met a professor, and we spoke about how to co-create. And she said, but you should build a process. And that the day before, we had a meeting with parents and adolescents in the evening. And we had started before that as professionals with pizza and then had a discussion with them. So that was a very important moment to realize, okay, this is not how you do it. If you want to co-create with end users as well, they have to be included in the pizza night. Yeah. So that's also the reason that the pizza night came up into the proposition.
Yes, okay. I really, as I already said, like the involvement of the end user. But how can the concept of pizza night be implemented to also make these professionals more a team, or more that they also see the added value of this disciplinary collaboration?
Yeah, I think what happens now, since COVID has faded away, is that we have interdisciplinary meetings about cases, so about how to deal with families and adolescents, but also team meetings where we meet each other in a more informal way. And the CEG teams choose to have both case discussions and intervision.
I don't know translation, intervision.
Learning meetings, but also informal meetings to grow as a team.
Yes, okay, thanks. So that's nice, yeah. Then I move to a somewhat different topic. I was really intrigued by your often mixed method approach, quantitative and qualitative. And now I have to be honest, I'm going to push you a little bit because I want you to choose which one is for you delivering the most outcome. Which is it more the quantitative or the qualitative? You have to make a choice.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Qualitative.
Qualitative.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you explain why?
Certainly. The quantitative figures, they tell us if something is growing, but we don't understand why. And even, for instance, the interprofessional collaboration, we didn't see a significant difference before and after. But when we were discussing this with professionals, they told us why it was not getting better, but also how it could be enhanced. So there was much more information coming from the qualitative discussions. And that's the same for, I think, for every study we did.
Okay, and how about can you apply it in a different context? You were somewhere in the middle of the Netherlands. Is it also, would it hold the same in the north or in the south or in a different country?
That depends. But that would also depend if you use the quantitative measurements, I think, because you always have to take into account the context. Mm-hmm. And if you have taken into account the context well enough, then you know what kind of your outcomes you can apply in a different context.
I agree. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Wesselink. We'll now continue to our second opponent, Professor De Kroon. Professor De Kroon is Professor of Youth Healthcare at KU Leuven in Belgium. Professor De Kroon, the floor is yours.
Yeah, highly respected candidate. Well, first of all, of course, my congratulations with the very interesting work you did, and also on a very relevant topic. I enjoyed reading it also from my background, being a youth healthcare physician myself once in practice. And also, of course, I would like to congratulate your supervisors. Well, I have some questions prepared, and the first one is about Chapter 7. And I heard you really prefer qualitative research. Maybe you know I prefer quantitative research, but the question is a little bit related to the last question, because Chapter 7 is a qualitative study on the contribution of using client-accessible health records to perceived quality of care among parents and adolescents. And I wonder, did you ever think about designing a quantitative study with the same research question? And if so, how would you do that?
Highly esteemed opponent, thank you for your kind words. And while you were starting while you were talking, I was thinking already, you have a preference for quantitative. How would we have done that? If you want to do a quantitative measurement, I think you would need a pre-test measurement and a post-test to compare. And I would design a questionnaire and do a pre-post test measurement with that. And now you can't do that anymore because we don't have a pre-test situation anymore. But of course, there's a lot of Netherlands left who don't have a client-accessible health record. So I would challenge them to start just as we did, and they can do a quantitative study, of course, and then I think our qualitative research might be input to design a questionnaire for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good idea. Yeah, maybe you could even compare several parts of the Netherlands, so you compare several situations and can correct for several covariates.
Yes, that's true. That would be wonderful, and that means that you have to have different regions who all want to start with a project like this. Yeah. And that would be amazing, and I'm also realistic, so yeah, I'm not sure how fast that would go.
No, that's always the difficulty, but maybe everyone wants to have a widespread implementation, and this might even bring it further if you have more in-depth quantitative research as well. I also had another question related to chapter 7. Well, you looked at the outcome, perceived quality of care.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, we both are physicians, and we are mainly, as youth healthcare physicians, we are mainly interested in the health of the children. How could you study this outcome, health of the children? Could you do that, or do you think it's less important, or would you like to study other outcomes in the long term? So not only the perceived quality of care, but also other outcomes.
I think health outcomes, if we expect health if we expect better health outcomes from the use of client-accessible health records, and we do, that would be a longer-term outcome, so we couldn't assess it yet. But even then, because we use the client-accessible health record on our way towards person-centered care, I think it's very justified to start with perceived quality of care, because it's very linked with patient and client experiences.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's very logical to look at. But if you have a follow-up study, for instance,
Yes.
a quantitative follow-up study, which health outcomes would interest you most, or are there other outcomes in which you have more interest than in health outcomes?
To be honest, well, you say as a youth, as a doctor in preventive child health care, we are both interested in health outcomes, and yes, I am. But in this case, even if it wouldn't increase health outcomes, I think it's the person's right to see their own health information. So that's not my primary goal. I can see that you could study it, but it would not be my primary goal with using client-accessible health records.
No. Okay, but in the end, it's the overall goal, I understood.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. I have also some questions about the discussion, chapter 8, in fact. On page 158, you describe that the adolescents are allowed to close the portal completely or partially if there are any confidence issues between them and their parents. Can you imagine, or I wondered, does it happen that it can cause that a tense relationship, if there is a tense relationship, becomes even more tense if an adolescent decides to do it, because I think the parents somehow will know that they don't have access.
Yes, of course they know. Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, I think when a relationship is already tense, it could get more tense. Mm-hmm. What we created was how the law says that we should do it. So adolescents from 12 years and older are free to decide whether their parents have access to their record or not. What we also discussed with each other is that a 12-year-old should be looking into his health information together with parents, because that's how you look at children growing up. When they are 12, they need their parents to guide, and then they are growing into more being more able to make their own decisions until they are 16, and then they should be able to do it themselves. And I think a lot of 16-year-olds will still need their parents to guide them in some decisions. So what you want is that adolescents and their parents use the health records together. And I think in many discussions where a 13-year-old says, okay, now I don't want my parents to look, you will have a discussion. Why don't you want that? And is it a good idea? Is it better to both have the right of access? But they do have the right, so we didn't have we didn't have another option but to give them the option to close it for their parents.
But could it have a negative impact on the whole meaning of what you want to accomplish? Because for some adolescents, of course, not all, for all of them, but for some of them.
Yes, I think it could, and you have to be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it requires from professionals that they have a discussion with both parents and children about this, about the rights of an adolescent to have their health record confidential, and about the importance to read things and do things together.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a conversation about that, and that's much easier in families where everything is okay than in families where it's already tense.
Okay, thank you. Do I have one more time?
You do.
On page 165, you talk about that the participation by adolescents was rather limited because only a small number of adolescent portal users were included in the client questionnaire. Do you think this could have affected the results of your study? Was there a selective dropout, for example?
I think there was not a selective dropout, but it was hard to. It was in the period that we didn't have a lot of face-to-face meetings, and that they were invited in the face-to-face meetings to complete a questionnaire afterward. So it was just hard to invite enough adolescents to complete the questionnaire. It was not really a selective dropout. And within the group of respondents, like I think we had 100 respondents in the post-test questionnaire, only 15 or 17% had actually entered their own health record. So then the number that you include is really small. It was not a very high percentage that use the client accessible health record. Although when you compare it with other international figures, 15-20% is not very bad after 1 year. But we thought it was quite low compared to the parents of young children.
Okay, I understand. I have one more question. I don't know if you know, but I once worked in the Schilderswijk in The Hague. And there were many professionals in one location, also a dentist, and he was very disappointed. He came from Turkey. He was very disappointed that the clients from Turkey hardly mastered their own language. He said there were only about 100 words they knew. Can you imagine that people from such a disadvantaged background can ever use this system in a way that it really benefits them?
I could not, but now I can.
Oh, okay. Also,
because I have spoken with different parents,
yes,
and that was one of the unexpected outcomes in our study. That we spoke with parents with migrant backgrounds, and they were not informed about the client record because everybody thought, okay, you don't speak the language, so why bother? I don't tell you about it. Mm-hmm. And they told me that, but I can look things up. I can use Google Translate. And then I met a mother from Afghanistan, and she couldn't read. She couldn't write. She could only write her name. And I thought, okay, this one here, we don't have to tell her. But we did, and we demoed the client portal, and she was very happy to be informed about it because her husband could help her, and she had a friend who could help her. Mm. So I think these people, this mother and we shouldn't overlook them, but they find their own ways, and not always. And I can imagine that sometimes the client portal will not be of any use, but you shouldn't assume beforehand that it's useless to them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor de Kroon. We now move to Professor Crutzen. Professor Crutzen is Professor of Behaviour Change and Technology at the Department of Health Promotion at Maastricht University. Professor Crutzen, please.
Thank you very much. Respected candidates, also my compliments for your work. We've been clearly instructed not to put a quality label on it yet, but I was highly interested in reading it. And as you might know, I was also involved in evaluation of OPEN, and that is the national access law, arranged by law, but also the technical implication of access to your patient records in general practice. And actually, a colleague of yours will defend her thesis on that quite soon, on December 5th. So if you're successful today, you can even ask a question. That is the things that are allowed by law. Now, that's why I was very interested in this. And it was actually also quite positive to me indeed to see that in youth healthcare, there might actually be further ahead than in general practice, I would say, the things that you do. So that's a good thing. I came all the way to Wageningen to learn actually from you. Because I've been asked to lead the Citrine-Fonds 3, and that is an initiative by all university medical centers, and the sub-team that I should lead is on digital inclusion in care. And in that light, I was also intrigued by your second proposition, so now I may ask to put your paronyms to work again to read proposition 2 for me, please.
Your paronyms, would you read proposition 2 for us, please?
Client-accessible health records bear the potential of reducing health inequalities in society if inequalities in access are removed.
Yes, thank you very much. And I think it's also quite hard to disagree with that proposition. But of course, how do we do that in practice? So what are your thoughts on how we could reduce those inequalities in terms of access?
Highly esteemed opponent, thank you for your kind words and for choosing this proposition. And I think what we see is that when new technology is implemented, mostly people in vulnerable circumstances profit less from it because they don't have access, because they don't have the knowledge to use it, but also because it doesn't match with their lived experiences. And I think in the Netherlands there are not a lot of people who don't have access to internet or who don't have mobile phones, but there still are. And those mostly are the people in vulnerable circumstances. And the people who not have the knowledge or the skills, that are the people in vulnerable circumstances. And I think a lot of implementation approaches are aiming for improving those knowledge and those skills. And I think we should start from the other side. As in our study, we found out that we didn't inform those people at all. Well, you could start there and inform them. But you could also develop new tools together with those groups to make sure that it matches with their lived experiences. And that the tools that you develop are something that they find useful. So I think you have to do something on all levels, but the last one would be, in my opinion, very important. Okay,
and then if we think in terms of responsibility, so to say, who is responsible for that? Who should act?
When we want to develop tools that everybody uses, we are responsible to develop tools that are usable for everybody.
Okay, but who is we then in this case?
In our case, it is the IT developers and the organizations who wanted to use the tool, so the organizations within the CEG.
So kind of if you're offering something, then you also have kind of the obligation to make it accessible.
I think so,
one way
yes.
To your target audience. That's what you would say.
I think so, yes. And that's how we targeted it as well. So we told the IT developer that was working with us that, yes, we are the client, but there's another client as well. So you have to discuss with the parents and the adolescents as well to show them the client portal and check with them if it's working. And they can also give inputs to make it better.
All right. And then in the proposition, the word accessible was used.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would like to ask the rhetorical question, is it all about accessibility? And I guess not, but well, you can answer.
No, of course it's not all about accessibility, but it begins with access.
Yeah, because, sorry, go ahead.
And that's about having tools, having knowledge, and easy access. And then when you have access, it should also be easy usable.
Yeah, because I want to make the bridge indeed to in what you describe in your general discussion on page 160, these 3 levels of digital divide you're talking about. And that's also what I hear, because I think, okay, you have the obligation to make the system accessible and so on. But indeed, in your answer also, running through it was already skills and things like that. And is that also something that we, to use your we, are responsible for?
I think you can't change it all, but you could at least think about it. So when we have discussed it, I know that we have discussed it within the CEG. Okay, if we find in our study that it's too difficult to access the tool, we could also arrange something like a help desk to make it easier for people to have access. Do they have internet? Do they have a mobile phone? I think that's out of our scope.
Yeah, okay, so there's more responsibilities in that regard,
Yes.
the higher up you go in these levels that you call. All right. Very interesting, looking at the time here. I want to move on to chapter 3, where you actually talk about these group-specific barriers. And you quote, or I quote you on page 160, that unexpectedly, experiences' eases of use was not related to educational level or native country, which we considered hopeful. So I agree. But which kind of group-specific barriers did you find then, and how does it relate to the discussion we just had before?
I'm not sure if I understand the
Well,
question.
let me check. You talk about already that you find group-specific barriers for portal use should be determined.
Yes.
Right. Well, if I look at these findings, and actually they're quite hopeful that the groups are not educational level in native country.
No, that is, we did not find native country and educational level to be a group-specific barrier. But as I think I explained in this chapter as well, we did not include, when we compared with the average population in our region, we did not include a representative percentage of people from not Dutch nativity, and we also didn't have a high representation of people with a lower education. So it could be that in our questionnaires we just missed out on the people with the lowest literacy, and then it could very well be, and we just didn't find it in our study, that there would be a group that couldn't use our client portal.
So then, can I conclude then, or would it then be a right conclusion to say, in the discussion in light of the discussion we just had, that we shouldn't jump to like solutions to reduce this access or lack of access, but we first actually need to know better what's going on before jumping towards solutions? You use the words "need to be determined."
I know. I think you should do both, because we know from literature that designing tools that match with people's lived experiences is very useful. So I think we can do that, and on the other hand, also dive deeper into what are the group-specific barriers that we need to account for.
All right, cool. Then I still have a bit time left. Then I'll go to chapter 7, which already discussed with my colleague next to me. And I know this is qualitative work, so we cannot generalize. But what I found striking was that 6 out of 7 people with a migration background, they actually indeed indicated, that you already just entered, that they were not informed about this. But they actually had quite positive experiences. Expectations, I should use. Yeah.
Yes.
And that reminded me of the work we did, indeed, where I started my introduction with in general practice, that also there people had to really high expectations. However, once they start using it, the experiences were actually quite not bad necessarily, but they were disappointed, let's put it like that. because it was not so helpful to them. Could that also be something here in this case, what you could that they have very high, maybe too high hopes, too optimistic about what they could find in such a health record?
I am not sure, and that is because you cannot really compare the two. Because in open, people get access to a part of their health record. And when I look into my health record from the general practitioner, I don't see the discussion we have. I only see a conclusion and the steps that we are going to take. While in EPR Youth, people can see everything. They see the full discussion that they have had and the report of that. So I think that makes a difference.
Yeah, so your approach is better.
I think so, yes.
I fully agree. So then I give the word back to the chair.
Thank you, Professor Crutzen. We now move to our final examiner, Professor Matthijssen, who is Professor of Family and Child Studies at Tilburg University. Professor Matthijssen, the floor is yours.
Respected PhD candidate, it was with great pleasure that I read your thesis. You have studied an interesting topic, that is, how using a patient-accessible electronic health record in preventive child health care and youth care could contribute to integrated person-centered care for children, adolescents, and their parents. You have used several scientific methods, such as scoping review, observations, questionnaires, and focus group interviews to give answer to the main research question. Furthermore, the dissertation has both scientific and societal relevance. Your thesis is based on 6 articles, from which 3 are already published in international journals, and 1 of the chapters is published in a national journal. So I would like to congratulate you and your team on these great results. Of course, I did not come here to give you only compliments. I would like to exchange some views with you. First of all, the title of your dissertation puzzled me a bit. I would have expected to find an answer in your manuscript on the question whether parents, children, and professionals are indeed on the same page. Could you please explain the title for me? And why did you choose for this title? Is it desirable that parents, children, and professionals are always on the same page? And why? And also the picture on the cover mainly shows drawings of relatively young and happy children. However, I can imagine that especially in the case of adolescents, it's not always easy to be on the same page, and probably not in the case of adolescents who need professional help.
Highly esteemed opponent, thank you for your kind words. And about the title. On the same page, we chose the title. I chose the title because of the link with an open book, and you're on the same page and talking about the same topic. And of course, it's a saying in English. Are they always on the same page? I don't think so. I know they are not always, but that is what we intended to be. We want the EPR Youth to be the tool for professionals, families to collaborate together on one plan that is constructed together, starting with the family, having a question. They want to get somewhere, they want to reach some goal, and for that they make a plan with the people around them who are on the picture, with their own family, their own friends, and sometimes they need professionals. But the key is that there is one plan that the family is owner of. So the aim is really to be on the same page. If we are always, no, we are not. No. And your other question, you see mainly young people here. Yes, that's true. And that's probably my bias, because I started sometimes in preventive child health care for young children. And when we are speaking about youth care, it's mostly school-aged children. So maybe we have to change the picture sometime. Yeah.
And do you think this record could help to be on the same page, or do we need more to become on the same page?
It is a tool, and yes, I think it helps. And when you discuss this with parents and adolescents, next week on the symposium we are having, they will also tell you that it helps. And we need more. Because it's only a tool. And I think what the health record is nothing more than or less than the place where we report the discussions we have. So these discussions, that's where you are on the same page. And then you put it in the record so that everybody knows what we have discussed about. It's nothing more than that. But before we had a health record that we had a discussion, we wrote something down, and parents and adolescents didn't know what we wrote down. And it could be anything. And it has given a lot of stress with a lot of professionals when we said we are going to open our health records, and they said, oh, but then they can see everything we wrote down. So in that sense, now we are not able anymore to write things down without the people we had been discussing it with knowing what we write down. So it's a lot more transparent.
Okay, thank you. Then I want to skip to chapter 5. In this chapter, you describe the development or the translation of a tool to investigate interdisciplinary collaboration within Dutch Care for You. Actually, it's not quite clear to me what you have done. As I see it, you have translated an American questionnaire which consists of 5 components. However, your factor analysis yielded an 8-factor solution. But the Cronbach's alpha you present are based on the 5 components of the American questionnaire. Is that right? And why did you conduct then a factor analysis while you were not going to do anything with the results? And one of the factors had a very low reliability, the Cronbach's alpha of 0.53. This is too low to use this skill in research. However, in chapter 6, you used the questionnaire again, and again with this factor flexibility. And it was just this skill that showed a change over time. Do you think that this found improvement could be a result of this low reliability? And you decided to maintain the concept of flexibility and in order to hamper the validity of the questionnaire. However, how do you know that you measured flexibility in a valid way?
You are right. We did a factor analysis, and it came up with totally with a lot more factors than the original questionnaire of Bronstein. And we discussed whether we would do the factor analysis over, or would we just stick with the factors that Bronstein used, and we said it was correct to do it again. And then we found a different factor outcome than Bronstein found, and then we had a problem. So we have discussed what we should do, and we decided eventually that since we had only 120, I think, respondents, well, sort of half of what we should have for a good factor analysis, we thought we then better go back to the theory that Bronstein had built and trust that her original factor analysis would be okay for our translated questionnaire as well. But that's debatable. But that's the choice we made. And we have been discussing it with Bronstein also, just to see what analysis she used and did we use the same analysis. I think it's the number of respondents why we had different outcomes. And the other question you were asking, did we have a valid questionnaire? And here again, the Cronbach was very low here. It was 0.53, I think. And that was also a choice, that we sticked with the original questionnaire, the original factors that Bronstein used. They had later on combined this factor with another one, but that didn't match with the theoretic model that was underlying. So we followed the underlying model, and that's why we kept the factors as they were.
Do you think that results you have now, so you saw an improvement, that could be a result of choosing a less reliable scale?
Yes, that's possible.
And in what way?
I think what we did in our study was use a factor that's consisting of two constructs, and they could have interfered.
I will allow you to finish that sentence.
They could have interfered with each other, and I don't know in what way it could have been differed, but yes, it could have.
And we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Professor Matthijssen, for your questions. I now adjourn the meeting. The examining committee will withdraw for consultation.
Oké, dan...
Please be seated. I hereby reopen this meeting. The Academic Board of Wageningen University, represented by the Deputy Rector Magnificus and 8 members of the committee appointed by the Academic Board, having noted the content of a thesis entitled Parent, Child and Professional on the Same Page, Implementation and Evaluation of a Client-Accessible Health Record in Dutch Centres for Youth and Family, with propositions, having heard the defence of that thesis, has decided to confer the degree of Doctor on Sophia Janine Benjamins, born in Hogeveen, the Netherlands on October 16, 1971, and to grant to her all rights and privileges ensuing from that doctorate by law and custom. The Academic Board assumes that you will accept your duty as a scientist to execute your future research ethically and with due diligence according to the Netherlands Code of Conduct for Research Integrity. I now invite the promoter, Professor De Wet, to present the candidate with the degree.
You have heard the decision of the Academic Board of Wageningen University to confer on you, Sophia Janine Benjamins, the degree of Doctor. It is now my honor to present you with the degree, signed by the Deputy Rector Magnificus, the promoter and the co-promoter, and sealed with the Great Seal of Wageningen University. I first invite you to sign the degree as well. And with this signature, you declare to act according to the Netherlands Code of Conduct for Research Integrity in the future. Yeah. Beste dokter Benjamins, Janine. Aan mij de eer om jou als eerste kort toe te mogen spreken, want Annemien die zal je wat uitgebreider in het zonnetje zetten. Van harte gefeliciteerd met deze knappe prestatie. We zijn vol lof en hartstikke trots. Het is een hele uitdaging om als PhD-student een proefschrift binnen gepaste tijd af te ronden. Maar dat is het al helemaal als je daarnaast nog een andere functie hebt en je proefschrift als externe PhD naast je baan moet schrijven. Gezien je werk in de publieke gezondheidszorg, waar ook nog eens een pandemie tussendoor kwam en je in die pandemie ook nog op een heel ander vlak werd ingezet, is het bewonderenswaardig dat je hier nu op dit moment staat met een proefschrift waar je in 2019 aan begon, met 6 empirische hoofdstukken die ook nog eens bijna allemaal gepubliceerd zijn of die kant op gaan. Wij zijn ontzettend trots. Onze complimenten en van harte gefeliciteerd.
Nou mag ik. Even zo. Ja. Nou mag ik verder. Beste Janine, heel hartelijk gefeliciteerd met deze prachtige dag. Wat heb jij een mooie prestatie geleverd in 5 jaar. Dat is echt maar kort als je ook nog werkt. Heel bijzonder om te zien hoe je dat gedaan hebt en ook hoe je anderen daarin hebt betrokken. En felicitaties gaan niet alleen voor jou, maar ook voor de mensen om je heen. Je ouders, je oma, andere naasten. Ik wil ze allemaal geluk wensen. En in het bijzonder ook je kinderen. Naomi, Jonathan en Iris en Damaris. Ik weet niet precies waar ik moet kijken, maar ik zie heel veel krullen en dan denk ik dat zal voor jullie zijn. Ik vind het zo bijzonder om te zien hoe jullie op allerlei manieren hebben geholpen met dit promotietraject. Van teksten nakijken tot vakantie, annex werkbezoek naar het buitenland. Ik vind jullie echt geweldig. Jullie mogen trots zijn op je moeder, maar zij mag ook reuze trots zijn op jullie. Jouw promotietraject is extra bijzonder omdat je dit naast je baan bij IKDGZ hebt doorlopen. En je bewandelde geen geëffend pad en je moest zelf veel uitzoeken. Maar jij houdt wel van een uitdaging. En ook om de dingen op jouw manier te doen. En ik herinner me nog het pak papier dat je voor je aanvraag voor externe ADIO moest indienen. Bestaande uit een motivatiebrief, aanbevelingsbrieven, vestigingsbrief, ondersteuningsbrief. Maar goed, toen dat allemaal ingeleverd was, toen kon je ook snel aan de slag. De inbreng van je kennis en ervaring met het werkveld was en is van grote meerwaarde voor het onderzoek. Je wist van de voorgeschiedenis, het ontwikkelproces en je kon je met onderzoek heel goed aansluiten op de bestaande werkwijze van de Centra voor Jeugd en Gezin. En tegelijk was dat natuurlijk ook een uitdaging om voldoende afstand te blijven houden. En te bewaren in het objectief verzamelen van de gegevens en daar ook zo naar te blijven kijken. Maar door de inzet van een bredere groep van mensen met meer afstand tot de praktijk en studenten met een frisse blik, is het goed gelukt om dit te organiseren en ervoor te zorgen om het voordeel van dicht bij de praktijk staan niet in je nadeel te laten werken. Bijzonder vind ik ook hoe je de mensen weet mee te nemen in waar je mee bezig bent. Zoveel groepjes die ergens in het hele traject voorbij kwamen. De projectgroep, klankbordgroep, het gezonde boerenverstandgroepje, de CEG's en waarschijnlijk vergeet ik dan nog heel veel groepjes. En in mijn beleving is dat hoe je onderzoek in de praktijk moet vormgeven. Hè? We leren van en met elkaar. En inmiddels begrijp ik dat het er thuis eigenlijk precies zo aan toe gaat. Je doet gewoon heel consequent hetzelfde. Gewoon met elkaar optrekken en samen dingen leren. Gestart in 2018 en na 5 jaar een proefschrift. Dat is echt ontzettend knap, dat is al een paar keer gezegd. En het is mooi om te zien dat jij de mogelijkheid om te kunnen promoveren maximaal te gelden hebt gemaakt. Je hebt alle kansen gegrepen om te leren en ervaringen op te doen. Je hebt diverse symposia bezocht in binnen- en buitenland, cursussen gevolgd en kennis uit de regio over een open jeugddossier weten te verbinden met de internationale academische wereld. Tijdens je promotietraject kreeg je hier al veel erkenning voor. Zo ontving je in 2021 de prestigieuze Flora van Laar-prijs, die het talent en vernieuwend onderzoek op het gebied van de jeugdgezondheidszorg stimuleert. Daarnaast kwam je in contact met mensen van de Open Notes Movement, onderzoekers van onder andere Harvard Medical School in Boston, die geïnteresseerd zijn in open dossiers voor kinderen en jongeren. Volgende week op het symposium zullen de verschillende resultaten van de onderzoeken op dit gebied naast elkaar gepresenteerd worden. Maar bovenal hoop ik dat alle inspanningen mogen bijdragen aan betere zorg voor jeugd. Want daar gaat het eigenlijk om. En ik wens jou en de partijen op de Noord-Veluwe toe dat ze met dezelfde bevlogenheid en passie doorgaan op de ingeslagen weg. En zo een mooi voorbeeld voor Nederland mogen zijn. Maar nu eerst stilstaan bij dit mooie succes. Samen vieren en genieten. Dat heb je echt dik verdiend.
Dankjewel, professor De Wet en Dr. Haverman-Nies. En helaas moet ik nu terug naar het Engels. Dat is mijn gebrek aan taal, helaas. Dr. Benjamins, this marks the end of your defense today and the start of the next phase of your career. Perhaps not an academic career, but certainly a career mixing both practice and research. On behalf of Wageningen University, I'd like to congratulate you on indeed achieving the degree of doctor, or should I say the degree of academic doctor this time around. I would also like to extend congratulations to your mother, Ali, and father, Jan. I'm also not quite sure I'm looking, but perhaps over in the corner there. Okay, very good. Who are indeed joining us here today. Also to your children, two of which are indeed on stage. And it just occurred to me how colour coordinated the entire picture is here. So well done on that note as well. And as well your grandmother, Svantje, who I also believe is not here, unfortunately. You did want me to pass on indeed a word of congratulations to her as well. Also congratulations to a very extensive network of colleagues, professionals at the university, at your workplace and beyond. Of course, everyone does make some contribution to delivering a doctor, so thank you to you all as well. And finally, of course, to all the work that Professor De Wet and Dr. Haverman-Nies have put into this thesis. So you are now again a doctor and will also remain a second doctor for the rest of your life, but you'll also remain an ambassador for our university. And I very much enjoyed the chat we had a couple of weeks ago where I learnt just how integrated, in fact, your research was and in the practice, and indeed we heard that very clearly again today. And it is an area where we'd like to really make a point for Wageningen University there, moving between academia, academic research and practice and bridging the two. So in that sense, we're very proud of a graduate so as yourself. And I'd also like to make note of the fact that indeed there are a number of chapters which are published, which is also very impressive, and it has to be noted, just as Professor De Wet noted, that this was done during the COVID pandemic, which of course perhaps lent you towards the digital world a little bit easier, but still, it's impressive to see such a good quality piece of work done during that period of time. But for now, enjoy the celebration with indeed your family and friends. And finally, I'd like to thank the committee, Dr. Wesselink, Professor De Kroon, Professor Crutzen, and Professor Matthijssen for all the efforts you put into examining Dr. Benjamin's thesis. We know how much work it is, and we also are very grateful because it maintains the quality of our PhD program at Wageningen. So thank you very much. And with this, I would like to close the meeting. Thank you.